You are listening to the Wedding Photo Hangover Podcast with the world's greatest photographers, Booray and Gary. And this week also Dustin and Steve are here like usual. The Wedding Photo Hangover is an irreverent look at wedding photography. This podcast, like aspirin, will help you recover from your wedding hangover. As I already mentioned, Dustin and I are so excited to have Booray and Gary Hughes, the world's greatest photographers, from the Photobomb Podcast on the show with us today. Booray and Gary aren't just recognized by their own podcast and now our podcast as well as being great photographers. They're also recognized by the PPA. That's right, they're both master photographers. Aside from mastering photography, though, Booray and Gary also make a comedy podcast about photography. Well, their podcast, Photobomb, is about as much about photography as the Wedding Photo Hangover is, I think you could say. Booray and Gary, we're so pleased to have you guys with us today. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to have a quick chat with us.
And that's all the time we have for this week. Thanks for listening.
You can find us on photobombpodcast.com. Join our Facebook group, facebook.com/photobombpodcast. My name is Gary Hughes. You can find me at hughesfioretti.com. My partner is Booray Perry. You can find him at boorayperry.com. And this has been the Photobomb Hangover.
Yeah, I feel like that has been the longest. That was a very long introduction.
Very long, very long. Yeah, we can't just pay Dean Cain to do ours. So
Well, maybe someday when you're a big podcast, you can bring in the heavy duty talent.
You know what's funny about Dean Cain being on the show was not on the show, but we use the service. If you listen, for you awesome Photo Hangover podcast listeners, and by the way, thank you, Steve and Dustin, for having us on. We've been trying to put this together for several months to find a time where all four of us could get together and do this, and it does mean a lot to us. So thank you. But we used the service Cameo. And it was inspired because Booray's best friend Kira got him a Cameo, which is basically you pay a celebrity to give you a video shout out for his birthday. So Booray got John Lovitz leaving a video message for him. And I thought immediately, I went to the website and I thought, I wonder if I can get one of these celebrities to read our intro as part of the video shout out. And I'm looking through and I found that Dean Cain is on there from Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman, Ripley's Believe It or Not, and 3 episodes of Law and Order SVU. And
3 episodes of Law and Order SVU.
And so I put in the message basically that like we're celebrating 200 episodes of our podcast, and gosh, it would mean the world to us. And I'm a legitimate fan of Dean Cain. Like Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman is a TV show that my family sat around and watched. One of the few things we ever did together when we watched that show every week for several years on Sunday night or whatever night it was. And so I actually was really geeked out to have Dean Cain do it. And not only did he do the Cameo, because they can choose not to do it, the celebrities, if they don't want to read the thing, but he actually read the intro as if he knew he was going to be introducing the podcast, which I thought was really, really cool. He absolutely did not have to do that, and for $60, and that was pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool. So thanks, Dean Cain. Hopefully he listens to your show too.
Maybe we'll just have to jump on Cameo and see if we can get him to record one for this episode.
Don't you dare take Dean Cain from us. How dare you? You get your own celebrity.
So as a longtime listener of the Photobomb Podcast, I have a lot of photography-related questions to ask the two of you. On a recent episode of the Photobomb Podcast, you two mentioned that everything you got beat up for as kids was now cool, referencing comic books and Dungeons and Dragons. So the first thing I want to know is what comics are you two into?
Booray?
Well, that's me more, I think, than Gary. And I wasn't into comics. I guess I was when I was very young, and then a little bit in my teenage years, and then I stopped. And then I discovered Marvel, Marvel Universe Online or whatever. You pay like $7 a month, and you get access to 50,000 Marvel comics.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'll check this out, and now I love it because you can go in and you can just binge. It's like Netflix for comics. And so, big X-Men fan, big Avengers fan. I tell you who, I'm just really a big Brian Michael Bendis fan. If you know anything about comic books, Brian Michael Bendis was the guy who took on Spider-Man when they did Ultimate Spider-Man. He created Alias, which was Jessica Jones on Netflix. That was Brian Michael Bendis created that comic book and created that character. And basically, he is the Quentin Tarantino of comic books. He writes great dialogue. He writes great stories and real human stories. And when you read his comic books, it's like you're watching a movie. And so that's what got me back into comic books was Brian Michael Bendis.
Yeah, funny enough, I have been in my middle school and high school years. I was big into comics, And mine were, I always loved The Incredible Hulk, I love Spider-Man, I love Superman, and I love the X-Men and the Fantastic Four. Those are my books. But it's probably been nearly 20 years. I'll be 38 soon, so it's been almost 20 years since I've purchased a comic book. And I recently discovered that our local public library, and we have several in the area, they all have sections for graphic novels. And so I've been catching up on a lot of the ones that I missed in comic book form. Like, you know how you know the source material is a comic book? Like, let's say you've seen the movie Watchmen or something, and so you're like, oh yeah, I know that's from a comic book, but I've never actually read the comic book. And so the Dark Knight movies with Christian Bale, those are based on Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns run, and there's a few, different things like that. The classic books, the classic collections, and I've been catching up on all of them. I just finished the first volume of Alias. Brian Michael Bendis is fantastic, and I just finished the New 52 Superman. I just finished volume 2 of Preacher. Like, I've just leave the library with like a stack of these graphic novels, and like this grown man, I take my children to the library. They have to get real books, and I come home with comic books. So that's
the reason they become so popular now is that Hollywood, the movies are so popular, is because Hollywood finally figured out that a comic book is a movie that's already been storyboarded.
Yeah, correct.
They take a movie, before they make a movie, they storyboard it. They draw the whole movie out shot for shot. Well, that's what a comic book is. It's a storyboarded movie. And when you watch, if you read the Watchmen comic book and then you watch the Watchmen movie, they practically took frame for frame every shot out of the comic book,
except for at the end.
And now there's a new Watchmen series coming out. They changed the ending. They changed the ending.
At the end, it's not Ozymandias that blows up Manhattan or Dr. Manhattan. It's a giant squid from outer space or something.
Intergalactic squid.
An interdimensional squid monster destroys Manhattan, and that would have probably played out a little bit silly on screen. So I think that was probably a solid change they made.
They would have had to build in the whole subplot where they have the people on the island who are creating the giant intergalactic squid monster, because it's not actually an alien. It's created on Earth and everything. Like, there's so much to
Jeez, did he just spank us on technicality already on the show? We're the guests. Damn, Steven.
I tell you though, if anyone's interested in comic books, Brian Michael Bendis. But if you want to really the thing that really broke him was a series that he did, I think, for Dark Horse Comics that was called Powers. And basically, what he did was a police procedural comic book about what it would be like for the cops in a world where they were superheroes. Just like we have Law and Order SVU, there would be a special police part of the police department that was charged with just investigating superhero crime. And that comic book is about that. And that's what I love about what he used to write, was that he was very much, comic books were, we're going to have a fight and fight a bad guy. And Bendis was very much about, what would the world really be like if there were superheroes in the world? What would that really be like, and in real world? And that's what that's why I think that the Jessica Jones series was so successful. Very seldom was she actually doing anything super.
No, I literally just finished volume 1 of Alias last night, and before I got really drunk, and it's exactly that. It's funny because she's got superpowers and she's trying to like get favors from and solve these cases by leaning on her old connections with the Avengers and whoever, and so she has to go to the Baxter Building where the Fantastic Four are, and she's trying to talk to Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic, and she's at a receptionist desk. She's like, can I please talk to Reed Richards? And they're like, I'm sorry, you must make an appointment or whatever. Like, this is what the world is like. It is actually really, really cool. And the similar theme is one that I've also been reading is Preacher by Garth Ennis. And I just finished that. And he also did The Boys, which is a new show on Amazon.
Have you guys watched The Boys yet?
That movie's good. That show's good. Have you been watching that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I watched it in 2 days. Yeah, of course. It's great. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah,
and Preacher, Garth Ennis is basically like that, except he just puts more boobs, genitals, and guts in it than anybody else. He does the Brian Michael Bendis, but then he makes it really, really like foul, you know. And that's
and it's just wonderful now that it used to be that if you talked about this stuff, you were a huge geek, and now you're mainstream.
Right, and now I feel like a dork because Steven knew something that I didn't.
Yeah,
that says a lot about Steven.
Thank you. The times have changed.
I own 2 graphic novels, and one of them is The Watchmen. So it was just, you got right into my very specific wheelhouse when it comes to comics.
We dipped right into your Kool-Aid.
Well, you're going to love this. You're going to love this. When I moved to Florida in the 80s, I hadn't read comic books in years, but I'd moved to Florida with my family, and I didn't know anybody. So I was bored, and there was a comic book shop right by my house. So I said, well, you know what? I'll check out what comic books are doing. So I walked in, and this would have been 85, and I told the guy at the counter, I'm like, what should I read? I haven't read comic books since I was in high school. And the guy goes, here, you should read these two. Here's issue number 1 of each one. And it was Batman, The Dark Knight Returns, and Watchmen.
Nice.
Wow.
Which are now considered the beginning of the new golden age of comics. Those two books are considered the books that completely changed comic books today. And I have them. I have both original series, the original comic books sitting in a closet behind me right now because I kept them for some reason.
Inside plastic, and you never touch them with your human hands, just always gloves on.
Yes. Oh yeah. Got them. They're mortarboarded, and yes, I don't have them in the hard sealed plastic, but yeah, I do have the original issues of both runs.
Yeah, I have quite a few in the dork boards and plastic wrap. I have a small collection of my favorites that I have not seen oxygen in 20 years. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And so here we are again to the fact that all the stuff that we loved as kids would have gotten us beat up in school. And I have comic books that I sealed in high school that have not been opened. Yeah, for sure.
So you guys mentioned Dungeons and Dragons too. Do either of you play or used to play?
I know
or?
You got a group, don't you, Boo?
I did. I tried to play again as an adult, but it was always so tough to get it scheduled, and so tough, to put it together. But I am an avid computer gamer. I play computer games like crazy.
Yeah, I haven't played Dungeons and Dragons in many years, but the problem is with Dungeons and Dragons, it always has been that nobody wants to be the dungeon master. Like, it's hard to find somebody who will consistently run a good game for a group of people and multiply that times 1,000 when everybody's got a job and got kids. But there were several summers where me and my brothers and our friends and some of our friends in the neighborhood didn't leave the house all summer. And I grew up on the beach in South Florida, and we didn't leave the house because we were like locked in a room playing Dungeons and Dragons and various other role-playing games for the whole summer for several years. But it's been a while. But we had to. It wasn't like you go out into public and we're just playing on a picnic table in the park.
No.
We were like, draw the curtains and keep it nice and quiet, and we're gonna stay in this room and play Dungeons and Dragons because you could. It's not like you could talk about it at school. Like, somebody put your head in a toilet or shove you into a locker. Like, what are you talking about? Anything that was interesting or required imagination, or that was a little bit different than surfing or playing sports, you were immediately branded as homosexual and stuffed into a locker. Yeah, absolutely.
Surfing. Where did you grow up?
I grew up on the beach down by West Palm Beach in Florida. I'm from Stuart, Florida, and it's a little...
Which was easy compared to where I grew up. I grew up in Louisiana.
Yeah, that's
so you
even
can only
worse.
Imagine, You can only imagine how bad it was in Louisiana to be different.
No, see, my town was all the retired elderly. There was a postcard in a general store in downtown, and it was just a picture of "Welcome to Stuart," and it was a silhouette of the beach with a bunch of tombstones on it.
That's about right.
That's where I grew up. And then if you go a couple of miles inland, it's all agricultural community. The only thing in the town I grew up was Pratt Whitney, which is an engineering firm that made jet engines for the government. So you had like a really wealthy class of people whose parents were all engineers and government contractors, and then you had farmers, citrus farmers, and then you had the elderly. And so it was a really strange community to grow up in, extremely conservative, extremely sleepy little town. And so it was very hard to find someone to play Dungeons and Dragons with because their redneck dad with cowboy boots and no socks on would call you a queer. That's basically what it was. So it was hard growing up that way. But at the same time, now that all this stuff, other people see how great this content was and how much imagination and how some of the greatest writing in the world, some of the greatest content ever created, was created in these mediums that were sort of like fringe. And now people are literally openly weeping when they watch Captain America in Avengers Endgame, or they watch Tony Stark die, and they're like, "Oh my God, I'm feeling so many feels." I'm like,
whoa.
Yeah. And then so part of you goes like, "Hey man, I've loved this the whole time. This is my thing, not your thing." But at the same time, like, thank God that other people like it now, because now stuff like this can get made,
Well,
so
that's also the Game of Thrones phenomenon, is watching the world love Game of Thrones, and you're like, I read that series twice before you ever even saw the first show.
Before you knew it existed. And I'm into stuff that's even deeper than that. You don't even know,
right. You don't even know. You don't even know.
You made it through that book series twice, Booray?
Do what?
You made it through that book series
I've
twice?
read the entire series twice. Come on, Game of Thrones is the greatest medieval fantasy series ever written. Period.
Incorrect.
It beats everything. It beats them all.
Incorrect.
Well,
I'm
remember
on
the other
Gary's
day?
side here.
The other day, Gary says to me, he's like, "So you read much?" I go, "Well, I'm kind of in the comic books right now. I'm not really reading." He goes, "I read this great book," and he goes by what was the guy's name? Patrick something. I'm like,
Patrick Rothfuss, yeah.
And I go, "Yeah, I don't really recognize the
Name
name."
of the
He goes,
Wind,
"Yeah,
right?
it's called The Name of the Wind." And I'm like, "Oh my God, The Name of the Wind! Oh my
Dude,
God,
that's
the best book
That's
ever."
the best book.
Oh
That's the
my
best book
God.
I've read in years.
Yes,
and
The Name of the Wind.
second.
And they're making,
King Killer
and guess what? They're making it into a miniseries.
And guess what? The guy is like George R.R. Martin. It's going to be like 20 years before we get a third book in the series. What the heck, dude?
Exactly.
Like, it's like you know that feeling you get when you're waiting for the next episode of your favorite TV show to come out. Pretend the episodes come out like 6 years apart, and that's waiting for a writer to come out with their next book. Especially Patrick Rothfuss, who I think, by the way, I love George R.R. Martin, and I literally have read every book and short story he's ever read. I love his writing, but Patrick Rothfuss makes George R.R. Martin look like he's still in college, learning how to punctuate properly.
No,
Patrick Rothfuss
good,
is.
George, by the way, can I just interrupt and say this is the best photography podcast I've ever heard?
Yeah. By the way, do you guys want to ask us any photography-related questions at some point? Which is fine. We're totally fine talking about this
Not
stuff.
really.
I'm having fun right now.
I'm just. When are we gonna start the podcast? Because time is ticking by here, and we really should
Seriously,
start the podcast.
I would just hang out and talk to you guys about this
I just
stuff.
want to talk
like,
about cloth, if we're okay with that, in The Name of the Wind. If you guys are
dude.
cool.
The Name of the Wind is
I-
great. Yeah.
I could talk about that, and that book, the way, if you break down certain passages in that book, they read to me like the guy writes like a poet. He's unbelievable how he creates characters, and he built in just 2 books has built an entire universe that you're like, oh my God, I want to see this, I want to live there, I want to go there, I want to read more and find out more about it. I think he's a more effective world builder than George R.R. Martin, and not only that, but he also writes people better. His characters are more dimensional. George R.R. Martin he does a great job, but one, there are way too many characters in his books.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Okay, and so he does this amazing job, but he has so many characters it's hard to differentiate between them as you're reading. And he does perspective chapters, so every chapter is from a different character's perspective. Mm-hmm. And just when you're getting into it, it switches to the next chapter, and then it's another character. And that's fine if it was like 2 or 3, but it's like 400. It's like 400 characters, and if you put down any of the Song of Ice and Fire novels let's say that you just get busy with life and you put the book down for a couple of weeks, you go back to it, you've completely forgotten what happened because there's too much to remember. And so that's the harder part about that. So, but anyway, so I'm a professional photographer.
That's what happened to me. I made it like 3.5 books in, put a book down, and then just never been able to get back into it because he introduced like a ton of minor characters in one of the books. And I was like, I don't know any of these people, and I don't know what's going on. And
well, you don't have to worry about it, Stephen, because he will kill them shortly. So they'll all die. Yeah, no question.
So if we do want to talk about some more photography stuff, we asked a while back if any of our listeners had questions for you guys. Alex Bruce, one of our listeners, wrote in. He said he would be really interested in hearing more about getting involved with the PPA. And he said that he's a member now, but he's never really gotten involved because it all looked like his words, bullshit waste of time.
Ooh, okay.
Well. You want me to take this down the
Before
open your
you
heart
do
road?
Yeah, I know that Booray, when you ask Booray about PPA, it's like that scene in a Vietnam movie where your buddy in your platoon just stepped on a landmine and you hear the click and now you know that something's about to go off. So before Booray goes down, I just want to say briefly, it was Alex was the listener's name?
Yes.
Say, yep. Alex, any organization that you join, whether it be your Chamber of Commerce, whether it be the Moose Lodge, whether it be whatever you get involved in, there's a principle of reciprocity. What you get out, exactly what you put into it. So if you can join PPA or any other organization and you pay your dues and then you just don't get involved, it's absolutely a bullshit waste of money. 100% is a waste of money to pay your dues and not get involved. Like, yeah, if you're not going to be involved, don't bother. Yeah, no. I've been a PPA member for 13 years, and I've been very involved that entire time as a volunteer, serving on committees, and I've gotten more out of it than I can possibly say, but I have put a ton into it as well. And the return has been overwhelming. You cannot outgive an organization like this that is an organization not for every photographer. It's for photographers who are volunteers, who care about the industry, who want to give back. And if you go into it with the mentality, what am I going to get out of it? You automatically, to me, are not the right type of person to be in the organization. However, you can learn how good it can be and learn to realize that the most important thing that you can do joining PPA is to become a part of a community that is hell-bent on preserving and advancing photography as an art, as a craft, and as a profession. And so if you want to be involved, to do it. If you're not going to get involved, you can have a successful career for many years and never even come near PPA, and that's fine. If you just want to pay your dues and wait for something to come to you, it is bullshit. It is a waste of time. But if you get involved, you will be blown away at the rewards that can come your way.
Okay, well, Gary just gave you I think, more of the heart and soul, which is where I usually go. So he told you how he feels about the camera, and so I'm going to tell you now what the hardcore specs are about the camera, because maybe you're not a heart and soul guy. I wouldn't be on this podcast if it wasn't for the PPA. I wouldn't know Gary if it wasn't for the PPA. I wouldn't have a best friend if it wasn't for the PPA. Every friend I have on Facebook, with the exception of a few, all came to me through the PPA. My entire social network all came to me through the PPA. But, and this is what all it matters for some people, I would say this year alone, I have probably made 10 years worth of PPA dues out of referrals that have come to me from other PPA members, because I was a member of PPA, because I knew PPA. I booked a wedding 3 weeks ago and I asked her how she found me. She said, I was looking for a good photographer and there's so many out there. And so, I went to that Professional Photographers of America's website and I looked on there because I figured, I saw that you were a certified professional photographer and everything. And I thought, well, that's a guy who knows what he's doing. That wedding right there will pay for 10 years of dues to the PPA. Right. So if you're a person who says, I got friends from the PPA, I don't need friends. What's it going to do for me? I can tell you without fail that I have made back 10 times as much money as I put into the PPA, simply by networking, meeting photographers, making friends. We're having our headshots. We're having our bumper shots done and our promo shots done this week for our podcast by our good friend Kevin Newsom. I would not know Kevin Newsom had I not gotten involved in the Tampa area Professional Photographers Association and the PPA. Kevin is the chairman of the Bylaws, Rules, and Ethics Committee at PPA. Wouldn't even know Kevin if I hadn't got involved. One of my closest friends. When I had a piece of gear break, I put the call out. I have 12 photographers show up to give me gear, to loan me gear to replace. All of them came to me through the PPA. So it absolutely changed my life. So you can look at the one side where it's all hard knowledge, where it's all, do I get my money back? Is it worth the money? And then you can look at the other side where you say, is it worth your life? Is it worth the friends that you make? I mean, Dustin and Steve, new friends, would not be here, would not know you if I had not joined the PPA. So yeah, I mean, Gary and I both are in the same camp where I can't imagine my life today if I hadn't joined the PPA. I'd just be some guy off in a corner doing my wedding stuff and everything, but I wouldn't really know anybody or really be friends with anybody.
Right. And here's the thing. We're not like zealots to where we're like people who, you ever been in a conversation where you meet somebody and you haven't watched a show that they love? Like the person who's obsessed with The Walking Dead, and then you tell them you've never watched it and they go, you've never watched The Walking Dead? Oh my, how could you be missing The Walking Dead? Some PPA people are like that. They go like, oh my God, how could you not be a member of PPA? But the thing that I understand about people that I think a lot of people miss, and I am an advocate for PPA, and I'll never not pay my dues. I will never not be involved as long as I'm in professional photography. But the thing that I understand is that associations of any kind are not for everyone. They really do attract a certain type of person who gets it. And the difference is that most photographers, most people operating as professional photographers don't even know the PPA exists. And that's just a fact. Like and they might come across it, they might have heard it somewhere, but they don't know it and they don't understand. And that's fine. They'll probably be fine. Everything will be okay. But who PPA attracts are the people who are, I'm not saying they attract only good photographers. No, there's a lot of crappy photographers everywhere. They only attract good people. No, there are a-holes in every association. But generally, they attract the people who want to be involved in a community that relates to what they're doing, and the people who have a sort of a spirit of volunteerism. Those are the ones who stick to PPA. Those are the ones who get involved and join and then stick and get sucked in. Because you can't, when you meet the staff, and I know pretty much everybody on staff, from the CEO all the way down to the person who answers the phones. I've met pretty much every one of the 50 or so staff members. I know most of the board of directors personally from years of being involved. And I will tell you that there isn't a single person I know that is involved in the running of that organization who absolutely isn't a volunteer at heart. And so who doesn't have the best interest of the entire photo industry at heart when they make the decisions that they make and when they do what they do. So, and if you want to be involved in something like that, PPA is for you. You go on, have a career otherwise, and don't get involved. No problem. I don't care. It's not going to hurt me if you don't join PPA. But if you decide to, and if you get involved, I'm sure 100% that you will find it to be worth doing.
If nothing else, go to Imaging USA because Imaging USA will change you. Have you guys ever been to Imaging USA?
I have not.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Go to Imaging. Oh, mother. First time you go to Imaging USA, you'll just be like, oh my God. First of all, giant trade show. I mean, giant. You walk in, it's like going to Comic-Con, but it's all photography. Okay, so it's there's the giant Canon booth, there's the Nikon, there's all the major labs, there's everybody's the giant trade show, and then all of these classes for you to go to, and then every night, you're hanging out in the bar, you're hanging out in the restaurant, and you are surrounded. Everybody in the room knows what depth of field is. Everybody in the room, everyone in the room is your. I'm just saying, everyone in the room is your geek. It's Comic-Con for photographers.
Yeah, and it would be like Steven walks into a room full of people whose favorite comic is Watchmen, and then you have something to talk about, right? Like, that's it. It's what it is. Yeah. Everybody is into the same stuff. And you're not gonna. It's not a thing. You're not gonna get into a political discussion. You're not gonna get into. All you're gonna do is you're gonna realize that you're in a room where everybody's into the same stuff. And I tell you, if you go twice, the second time you go, it's like a family reunion with 10,000 people.
Oh my God! It's the best day of my year is the first day at Imaging USA. You get to Imaging USA, you're walking through the place, and every 5 steps is, "Hey, Bob. Hey, from Oklahoma. How you doing? Yeah." And you suddenly, and every year you go and you meet new people, and it becomes like a giant family reunion, like Gary said.
And there's not a place in this country that I couldn't make a phone call and have a place to stay while I was traveling from photographers that I know through the PPA. You know what I mean? If I was in Oklahoma or Arizona or New Mexico or California, I could make a phone call and I could be having dinner with a good friend and in minutes. Like it is, if you're into it, if it's your thing, oh my gosh, it is very rewarding. Yeah.
Well, this last year at Imaging, you guys were both out like on the floor doing video shows and stuff too, right? Not for Photobomb, but for other things.
Yeah, Booray works for PPA, and he does this sort of like Billy on the street thing for PPA.
Yeah, that's what it is. Billy on the street. That's exactly. It's an uncanny reference. I hate that you have given away that I've stolen my entire show from Billy Eichner. That's exactly the way I do it too. I just ambush people, scream at them in a high, shrill voice. What kind of camera do you use? That's what I do.
I would love to watch that.
And I do a Billy on the Street thing. This past year, I was doing very similar, but for a company called Front Row, which I have done a class for. It's an online education website for photographers, kind of like a master class kind of a thing. And so they were doing Imaging USA coverage, and Booray and I were both doing the same job for two different entities. Yeah. And then we met, and we did sort of
just
like
yelling at people in a high-pitched shrill voice.
Yeah, I have a high and shrill voice as it is, so, hey, who are these people? Yeah. But it was a lot of fun because, my problem was I got asked to do it. I did not seek the job out because obviously I'm a talker. Bouray's a talker. We both know how to be on a microphone, how to be on camera. We can talk to anyone, like Booray and I, we could talk to a tree and the tree would talk back, but that's just who we are. And so people seek us out to do stuff like this. And Booray had been doing this live from Imaging USA thing. And he does like the voice of God in the awards ceremony. He does he's just got that voice and that presence, and people seek him out, do stuff like this all the time, and I've always let that be his thing. And when I got asked to do it, I go, is Booray going to think that I'm copying him if I say yes to this?
Oh, Gary, you copy me in all things.
That's true, I am.
Why get upset about this when you pretty much patterned your entire life after me? I'm your mentor. We know. Yeah, it's okay to admit it.
I don't want to use the word mentor too lightly,
More
like
figure. Godlike figure, I think would be a better. Yeah,
that's correct. That's I'd say that's accurate. That's accurate.
Like savior.
Is hero too big of a word? Is hero too big of a word?
I think it's accurate. I think hero's good. I think hero's good.
We'll go with hero. Hero's good. We'll take it.
Hero's
So-
good.
Within the PPA, you guys also both you judge like in the competitions every once in a while.
No,
right?
No, Gary
No?
is a juror, an approved
Okay.
juror. Gary's been through a class. He's gone and taught all over the country, gone and judged all over the country. He has been reviewed by other judges, and then he has had those reviews looked at by the committee, and then the committee decided to ask him to become an approved juror for the PPA, which is a long and arduous and expensive process to go through. He has gone through all that. I are what's known in the industry as a hack. I'm a hack who every once in a while gets asked to go judge like at the local competitions because they need somebody to judge. And I have no credentials whatsoever or qualifications or really ability to judge well. But I get asked to do it because I'm a master photographer. So when you need someone to judge your competition, at least a master photographer is somebody who has competed for years and years and years. And at least they should have some idea of how the judging works. And so you get them to do it because you can't always get an approved juror like Gary. But if you can, you really want to get an approved juror like Gary who has been through the meat grinder that you have to go through to be a juror, because you have to go through a lot to be a juror. And then once you are a juror, it's constant scrutiny. And I'm speaking for Gary because to free him from having to do it. It's constant scrutiny. It's constant review. It's not like, okay, you're a juror and go and judge and have fun for the next 10 years. No. At any point, they may pull you. They may say, you know what, you're not quite doing things the way we want you done, or you're not doing them right, or you're starting to be too biased, and so we're pulling you. They are very, very, very meticulous about trying to keep the quality of the judging at the very highest level in the country.
Technically, I'm still on probation.
Yeah, that's right. Technically, you're still on probation.
You're
And
2
Gary
years of probation.
And also Gary's on the committee now that does all the stuff I'm talking about in terms of approving jurors and giving the jury surcharge.
I'm on the IPCC committee. There's two committees that govern the competition.
That's right. I got that right. There's one committee that's for the jurors, and there's one for running the actual competition. You're
One's
on the one that runs.
rules. We do the rules for competition. If there's a challenge to the rules or a disqualification, we make the final determination on that. So the reason they used to have one committee that made all the rules for competition and approved the jurors or whatever. And so there was a feeling among the board of directors that committee had too much power over the situation and had too much to do as a committee. That's a big job. So they split it into two, and you have the Juror Excellence Committee, which reviews and approves new judge applications and makes rules for judges. And then there's the IPCC Committee. Boy, this is really exciting stuff. The IPC Committee, which basically makes the rules for the competition. So we decide on how the rules change, how the images are judged in categories and things like that.
By the way, Gary also judges at WPPI. He's done that 2 or 3 years. He judges overseas in London. He's done that for 2 or 3 years. He's a big deal, Gary Hughes.
Yeah.
Big deal in the judging world.
I'm a much better judge than a photographer, I'll tell you that.
Me on the other hand, yes. Me on the other hand, I'm a hack who sits in the back of the room and talks bad about all the judges.
Nice.
Hey, don't talk bad about Booray Perry. He's my hero.
That's me. I'm the guy who doesn't judge but tells you you're doing it wrong anyway.
That sounds familiar, Steve.
When Gary says that he's on probation, does that mean like he hasn't been a juror for very long, so he's on probation, and, like they're testing him out? Or does that mean like he's the bad boy of the juror world and like he did some really crazy stuff and he got put on probation?
He's on double secret probation.
Yeah. The only thing that I do that gets me in trouble is, there are a few. There's so much, like when it comes to PPA judging, there's so many rules of conduct. And that's more. There's more rules of conduct almost than rules of how to actually judge the images, because one of the things that they want to do is they want to make it level the playing field, and they'll make any rule they possibly can to keep one judge from bullying other judges on a panel or intimidating other people, or just because like. As you might imagine, fellas, I am often the loudest person in the room. And it is very common for me to, especially when I was younger, to have to be the center of attention and not let someone get a word in edgewise. But on a judging panel,
when he was younger,
yeah.
Not anymore.
You wouldn't even be able to say that 10 years ago. That's how much I would be talking. But it trains you, and this is going to sound goofy, right? And this is going to sound, because I'm not an airy-fairy person. I'm not like a heart and soul guy. But I will tell you that learning to judge and work as part of a team and learn to have to listen to other people's opinions and respond, because you cannot phone it in. Like Booray said, if somebody is talking and you're not addressing their concerns with your responses, they'll pull you. Like, they will pull you. And if you're not flexible with your scores, if you're not listening and changing with the rest of the panel, if you're not working as a team, they'll pull you. They won't approve you. You will not come off probation. And so, because probation is basically when you get your first approval by the committee, then you have a 2-year probationary period, and then you're full. So I'm just coming to the end, and my probationary period is just about to end, as a matter of fact.
I'm just glad that you're not an Airy-Fairy person.
I'm not Airy-Fairy. Yeah.
If you would like to define for us what an Airy-Fairy person is, that would help us all a great deal.
Well, think about the person who meditates and is a vegan, and then anytime you say anything in conversation, they have to make it about feelings. Okay. The person who can't.
That's an Airy-Fairy person.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
All right.
Airy-Fairy.
I feel like we bring nothing to this podcast today, but this new word for the listeners of the Wedding Hangover Podcast.
Here we go.
Airy-Fairy is a new description. Because until today, I've never heard Airy-Fairy referred to in terms of a person.
Well, I got that. Who said it? It was Ted Danson. I was listening to an interview that Ted Danson did on Sam Jones' podcast. Off Camera with Sam Jones, by the way, is a phenomenal podcast, and he had used that, and I said that's a great way to describe people
Airy-Fairy.
like that. Yeah.
All right.
I thought you were going to be like, I was watching an old episode of Cheers, and...
Which one? I've watched them all 3 or 4 times. That's one of the best. And I don't think a show like Cheers would be very popular anymore, because we expect a Game of Thrones now.
I disagree. Come on. Big Bang Theory, they only pulled it off the air because they wanted to. It was still the biggest sitcom, and Cheers every bit is good or better than Big Bang Theory.
Yeah, I guess that's fair, because you have Friends and Seinfeld and Big Bang Theory. 2.5 Men was like one of the most popular shows in the world. But at the same time, I don't like those shows. I think the Big Bang Theory is one of the worst TV shows ever created. I think it's a show about smart people for stupid people. I
liked it the first couple of seasons, and then when it became mainstream, it gets to the point that the audience just laughs when you enter the room.
How many times is this funny? Penny. Like, we get it. 400 times we get it. Would you just write something good? I get
Zinga,
it.
you're really lighting them up over there. Jeez.
Yeah, no. Look, all those actors are great, and I have nothing against those people. But I seriously shows like that. Just I have so little time. I have toddlers and a pregnant wife and a business to run. I have no flipping time for Penny. Wow. Show me something. Give me something. Wow. Give me something I haven't seen, or you can go straight to hell. I'm bored with you. I'm done.
You should try to be a little more Airy-Fairy.
I should be.
Right now is what I'm saying.
I'll calm down. Sorry. I'll simmer down.
It's okay.
I bet.
I feel like what you said about Cheers was accurate. I don't feel like it would do well now, because Sam and Diane's relationship is just so incredibly toxic at first. I don't think that plays very well in this day and age as a comedy. I think it could do well as a drama now, but comedy, I think
Cheers
it would,
the drama.
Yeah,
it would be more like Big Little Lies or whatever than it would be Cheers. Yeah.
Well, it's funny, because one of the things I've always found fascinating is that when MASH played in England, right? It played without a laugh track. And so someone who grew up in England watching MASH will tell you that their perception of that show was totally different than our perception. To them, MASH was not really that much of a comedy.
Yeah,
it was pretty dark when you really
there was no
it.
laugh track on MASH, and they didn't think it was that much of a comedy. They just thought it was a show about the Korean War.
The film that the show was based on was incredibly dark. It was an incredibly dark film. It was a dark comedy for sure. And so they, but that's an interesting way to look at it, because they dealt with some really heavy themes. Interestingly enough, I think the conflict in Korea lasted 3.5 years, but MASH ran for 11.
Yeah.
And the show ran 3 times as long as the actual Korean War did. Oh my God, are we going to talk about photography?
Yeah. Anyways,
Dustin, did you have
Gary? Gary was speaking about how he didn't have time for things, and I was curious why you stopped doing wedding photography.
Oh, right, because this is a wedding photography-centric podcast. I was walking, funny enough, Dustin, I was walking out the door, and my wife goes, "They know you don't shoot weddings anymore, right?" And I go, "I think that's going to end up being kind of a thing we talk about or whatever on the show." Gosh, here we go with the Airy-Fairy stuff again. But I grew my parents were wedding photographers. They recently retired, closed their business a few years ago. But every meal, every utility bill, everything, every piece of clothing on my back as a child was paid for with their photography studio, their business. And so I grew up from people who were small business owners, entrepreneurs, and creative professionals. And here's the thing. My parents are wedding photographers, and anyone who knows anything about wedding photography knows that wedding photographers work 7 days a week. There's no question. If you get an inquiry on a Sunday, you're answering it. If your phone rings on a Sunday, you're going to answer it. And you're going to be meeting clients all week, editing images. You're going to shoot a wedding on Saturday, sometimes a Saturday and a Sunday. Wedding photographers work more than almost any other type of photography, and you work a lot of nights and a lot of weekends. That's just the job. My parents did the very same. And when I was a kid, if there was a field trip, a Cub Scout thing, a football game, a soccer match, all of that stuff, I was the kid who more often than not had to ride with another kid's family to the game, to the thing. And because my parents were working. And I was really proud of them. And I was really proud of them for what they did. And at the time, I wasn't mad about it. But when I found out, the minute I found out I was going to be a father, the first thought I had was, oh my God, I'm scared and all this, all the Airy-Fairy family stuff. The second thought that burned its way across my brain was, I got to get out of the damn wedding business because I am not going to miss a ballet recital. I am not going to miss a soccer match. I am not going to miss anything on these kids because of my job. My job exists so that I can have a life. My job is not going to be my life. And I made that decision, and that's why I got out of the wedding business. I love shooting weddings. Shooting weddings is awesome. It's fun, it's exciting, it's challenging, and it's emotional, and it's the best day of most people's lives, or the worst, but mostly the best day of people's lives. And you get to be there. I always looked at it as sort of a sacred responsibility. I think that's why we have so much anxiety shooting weddings, is because we know what a big deal it is, and there's a lot riding on it, and you have to be, as a photographer, good at every single discipline underneath the photographic umbrella. You have to be able to photograph products, you have to be able to photograph architecture, you have to be able to do portraits, you have to be able to do groups, you have to do all of it, and you have to be good at it, and you have to nail it under very often the worst possible circumstances. And I ate that up. That just feeds my soul, but I needed to be home. And so it took about 2 years. I shot my last wedding almost 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I will take the other side and say that for those of you who may have just heard what Gary said and you're like, oh my God, he's right, I have to quit weddings, that there are upsides to shooting weddings as well. For example, he's right about missing things. I miss things all the time. But I'm also a little bit older, and I come from a generation where I didn't take dance classes 5 days a week that my father was expected to be at the way that, the kids are today. I didn't grow up in a generation where your parents were going to be at everything that you did. Also, you didn't do as much when I was a kid. So my kids do so much more than I ever did, and I think it's unrealistic for them to expect me to be there for everything they do. But there's also other upsides. For example, I picked up my kids from school every single day as a wedding photographer because I could pick them up at noon or at 3 o'clock. I went to, whenever they had a thing at school, an awards ceremony or whatever, I was able to go because I don't have a regular job. I don't have to ask off from work, et cetera, et cetera. When they're off for a week from school, much more likely that I can take them to movies or something at noon on a Tuesday than it is for the parents who've got regular jobs or a regular studio that's open 9 to 5 and they have to be there all day. So there's, I think if you shoot weddings, it's a conversation you have to have ongoing with your kids, because there have been times when my daughter has said, wow, I really wish you could go to that thing. And then she says, but I get it. I understand, we have to make money. And also I understand I see you every day. Because I always say, you understand, I pick you up from school every day at 2:30 and your friends get on a little bus that takes them to some camp where they stay until their parents pick them up at 6. Right? And they're there at some little camp every day for 3.5 hours till their parents pick them up, rush home, eat dinner, and go to bed. Whereas you come home to me and your mom both in the house every day at 2:30 in the afternoon. That's what you get. And the trade-off is that I maybe can't go to your dance recital on Saturday because I have to shoot a wedding.
Mm-hmm.
That's totally fair. Yeah, absolutely. But I get to do both.
Yes. Yeah. Well, see, Gary gets to do everything. He gets to pick his kids up from school, he gets to do it all. Bastard.
Yeah. I'm living the dream, basically. What we've really stumbled on is the fact that you're a terrible parent.
I am awful. I'm absolutely awful. I am. Here's what I think is funny, though. You ever take pictures of your kids, and when you're taking pictures of your kids, you treat them exactly the way that you tell parents not to treat their kids when you're taking pictures of their kids? Like, you're taking pictures of someone else's kids, and the parents are like, hey, smile, turn to the left. And you're like, hey, calm down. It's fine. Just chill out. We got lots of time. Just relax. She'll come around. We'll be able to get some good pictures. It'll be fine. And then you go take pictures of your own kids, and you're like, hey, you stand right and do it. Listen, I don't have all day.
And photographers' kids should know better.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, but you treat them exactly the way that you tell parents not to treat their kids at a session.
The difference is you can like threaten with like grounding or, no TV later, turn towards that window or no TV tonight.
Yeah.
Whenever we do family photo sessions at the studio, my wife brings the kids in and we do this every couple of months and we photograph the kids. I swear to God, it is the most tense time in our family. We don't yell much. Our house is generally as calm as it can be, full of toddlers. We're very like mostly calm parents, mostly calm life. Or we got a neighbor who they got 3 kids and they're just yell. They're just a ball of 5 people just in like a Charlie Brown type of dust cloud just yelling at each other. And and we're like, oh, thank God we're not them. But then when we go into the studio to take pictures of our kids, that's exactly what we are. We are just that bad or worse. And it's just because, for me, my mentality is my kids know the drill and they're being buttholes anyway. That's why I'm angry at you. Because
Right.
you know what to do.
My kids give me a hard time and I'm like, listen, how long have you been the daughter of a photographer? Can you just please accept the fact that I'm going to be taking pictures of you all the time and just get used to it? I was at the school just the other day for the end of band camp, and they were doing their thing, and we're in a big thing, a cafeteria, and I'm just taking candids of the kids, and I turn and I take a couple of candids of their friends, and their friends immediately are looking at me to smile for the picture, and Samantha goes, "Oh, don't do that. Yeah, he's going to take pictures all the time. Just ignore him." And I was like, "That's my girl. That's my girl. Thank you very much." Thank you very much. It only took 16 years to get you to that.
Yeah, that's
Is
awesome.
Samantha your oldest or youngest?
Yeah, my oldest is Samantha. She's 15, and then my youngest is Mackenzie. She's 13.
Mm-hmm.
Good kids, too. Good kids.
Oh, great kids.
Is it hard as you get older with your kids? Because like right now, my son's 8 and my daughter's 3. So they don't have a lot going on weekends. But like I remember when I was a kid, around like 10, 11, I started doing like a lot of sports on the weekends and stuff. Do you find it's harder now that they're getting older because they might have more things going on the weekends, or?
Yes. Well, yeah. I mean, if you have a kid that gets into something heavy, like Samantha was into dance, and she literally went to dance 4 or 5 days a week, and plus she had recitals and stuff. But we're very open with our kids, and I try to never lie to my kids, and I try to really bring them in on adult concepts kind of early, so they understand that part of life is that you have to work and you have to make money, and that we have to work, and they understand that. Remember that trip that we took to the mountains where we rented that cabin for the entire family for Christmas, and we all went and all that. Remember all that stuff? Yeah, we were able to do that because when you were at your recital, I was making $5,000 at a wedding. Mm-hmm. So you understand that I could be here more for you on everything that you do, but the flip side is you're not going to get a new bike.
Yeah.
So you have to give them, you have to make sure that they understand, delayed reward. They have to understand that there is a reward that you get for sacrifice, which helps them in their entire life. There's a sacrifice that you make by not having your dad at your recital, but the reward is that you get more Christmas presents, or you get a tutor to help you get into a better college, or whatever it is that you need in life, because your dad is making money that we need to provide these things. And it's so important, especially now with helicopter parenting being what it is, to make sure that your kids understand that life is about sacrifice and reward, and that everything isn't given to you, and that you have to work hard to earn it. And so I think it's Gary knows, like Gary said, he was most likely to be the kid who had to get a ride to the event, but yet he was also very proud of his parents because he saw how hard his parents worked to make a life for him.
I think the children of small business owners get it more than most, though, Stephen, to be honest with you. Like your kids are already, probably because your son is older than my kids, and they're going to know. Like, there's going to be stuff that they're going to understand that you don't even tell them. The kids are, especially if they're not dumb. If your kids are smart, your kids are probably smart. You're a smart guy.
You just met me.
Okay, so kids are intuitive. I believe that they get a lot more than you think that they do. If you hear your kids talk to someone else, you can go, oh man, they really do know the deal. And you're a small business owner. They see you working, and even on the times when they seem frustrated by what they can't have or can't do or where you can't be, they're secretly, what they can't tell you is how proud they are to see you doing that, and they're going to take that and use it and do that in their own life. They're going to model themselves after you, and you're not going to see it until much later on, that the effect that you've had on them by showing them what it is to work and to have a business that you're passionate about and to pour yourself into something. You can tell your kids kids things all you want, and they'll absorb a certain amount of the things that you tell them, but what they're really going to absorb and emulate is how you behave and what you're showing them by sacrificing the stability of a 9-to-5 job to follow your passion and to do what you love for a living. That's going to be a lasting impact on them that you couldn't drill that into them if you tried, but you will by showing them that it's possible to do it. You're showing them a way to live your life that other parents never get to show their kids.
And it will come back. I mean, I had an Airy-Fairy moment just the other day with my youngest daughter where she got accepted into a travel choir. I didn't even know such a thing existed. So this is like travel baseball. She's going to have to travel and perform, and there's a cost that's incurred. And she came to me and said, here's all the information, and the money is due on this date, and it's going to be this much money. And I know, that money being what it is and everything, I know that maybe we can't afford to do it, but I did want to show you this thing. And I'm like, almost tearing it up. I'm like, there's no way in hell you're not doing this thing. I will find the money. I will sell a kidney.
You're doing it.
You're doing this thing. So that I'm like, no, I'm like, sweetie, you're absolutely doing this. She's like, are you sure? Because the money, I'm like, trust me, you're doing this. You're not, you're not doing this because I can't find the money. And it really wasn't that much money. But, especially because she has an older sister who, she watched go off and do things for years and years and years, and we paid for that. So there's no way I'm telling you can't do this. But I was so proud that she was prepared to get the no, and she was prepared to accept the no because, life is a business and money is important. And so it comes back to you. You're only 8. You're not seeing it yet. Right now, I think it's tougher. I think it gets easier as they get older. And like Gary said, if you have good kids. Now, if you've got horrible kids, then they're like me when I was 16, yelling at my mom because I can't get any dates because I don't have a nice car. And my mom giving me the classic line that if a girl
it wasn't the car, boo.
Yeah, it wasn't the car. If a girl only wants to go out with you because of your car, you got a problem.
Yeah.
Everyone else got a nice car, Mom.
I love it.
Yeah.
So typically, we answer some questions that are kind of weird and out there from the internet. Typically,
we
from
haven't been
Facebook
doing that.
groups.
That hasn't been pretty much.
No, we haven't done that yet. Are you?
So weirder than what we've been doing.
Oh yeah, even weirder.
Okay.
Do you guys want to do some Q&A with us?
Let's do it.
All right.
You got it.
Let's do some Q&A.
But Steve.
Emily from a random Facebook group asks, can I wash a lens wipe in the washing machine, or do I just need to buy a new one? Asking because I was doing headshots last week at a business. The CEO, a very old man, was chewing gum. I asked him if he could spit it out. He looked confused. There wasn't a trash can around, so I grabbed a lens cloth and held out my hand for him to spit the gum out in it. He spat all over the cloth and my hand, but there was no gum. Just a heavy chewing tobacco smell. WTF. So is that washable or is that just trash?
Okay.
First of
Booray,
all,
please
I'll take this one. First of all, boil your hands.
Forever unclean.
Boiling your hands. Boil your hands. And why would you want to wash the lens cloth? Literally, I don't know if you've noticed this, but if you order anything, you get a free lens cloth now. Like, it's seriously, you order a squatty potty, here's a free lens cloth with your squatty potty. I must have.
You get a Big Mac at McDonald's. They hand you a lens cloth through the drive-through window.
Right? Like. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've got like 30 lens cloths sitting in a bowl right next to me right now. Why would you wash a lens cloth?
I like that you guys' examples are squatty potties and fast food. It's just lens cloths are just toilet paper, I guess.
Not to mention, this happened to me this week. I went to buy some of those pre-moistened little towelettes that you can buy that are for cleaning your glasses. Mm-hmm. And if you buy more of them,
are those behind you on the desk right there?
That's behind on the desk. If you buy more, they're cheaper per unit. So I'm like, oh well, I'll buy 400. Not realizing that if you can see behind me on the desk, there's like a tower behind me, box with 400 lens wipes in it for like a 5-year supply of lens wipes. It cost me $19.
Yeah.
Pony up a sawbuck and buy yourself some lens wipes and throw that thing away.
What is a sawbuck?
It's a $20 bill.
Yeah, it's a $20 bill. And just throw the lens wipes away, buy yourself some pre-moistened towelettes, and join the 21st century.
Dude, did you have to time travel back to the Prohibition era to pull sawbuck out of a thesaurus?
Sawbuck, yeah.
Good God Almighty! It's funny you say that because I just bought like an 800 count of Excedrin, because I'm like on Amazon. It's like, wow, the unit price gets really cheap if if you buy it like I own a drugstore.
Yeah, it's like a nickel, but if it's 5 cents a piece. But if I buy 1,000, it's 4 cents a piece. Oh wow, that's a huge savings for you.
Well, you can buy the ones on Amazon that they have at you ever go to a gas station and they have those individual packets of 2 pills of painkillers. You can buy like 2 aspirin or 2 whatever. Yeah, just like that. And I bought that of Excedrin. And so like if I've got, and I take, by the way, my convention travel kit includes about 100 Excedrin because you're always drinking too much and staying up too late when you're at a photography conference. Happens every time.
My kit includes lens cleaning pre-moistened towelettes.
Ed, look, you're going to have those in every crevice in your home.
They're in my car. They're next to my bed. They're here on my desk. They're in every room in the house. If I need to clean a lens on my camera or on my face, I have got that pre-moistened towelette right there. Or on my screen or anything. I'm ready to go because I spent a sawbuck, ladies and gentlemen, on being prepared for the next 5 years.
It's the impetus of that question that really gets to me. Like, how do you go through the mental process? She must be sitting there with a soiled lens cloth in her hand next to her on the desk or something while she goes, you know what? I should really crowdsource this question. I should really put this out there to see what other professional photographers are doing with their soiled lens cloths. For Christ's sake, just get a new lens cloth. You can get them for free. I bet if you Googled free lens cloths, you'll find every company in the world will mail you. They'll even pay the postage. Just put it in the trash, you idiot. Okay, sorry. Next question.
All right.
Next question.
All right. Please.
Christy from a random Facebook group. I ate a sucker. I found it on the floor of my studio after a family photo session. My throat feels scratchy and I'm a little under the weather. Would it be okay to ask the mom if her child has been sick recently? I just need to know what I've got.
Can I have this one?
All right.
Does knowing where the cold came from change the fact that you have a cold? Or are you trying to identify the particular virus that you've been infected with and get some advice on how to take? You've got a cold, you idiot. Don't eat food off the floor. My 3-year-old knows that. All right. So do me a favor and stick your head inside of a microwave and turn it on high because you are too stupid to live.
Right.
Okay.
Whoa.
Next question.
I'm gonna go the other way and just say, listen, you've got the herp. You need to go ahead and go see a doctor. And they've got great drugs for that now, but you've got the herp. So go ahead and see somebody about
Where are you getting these questions? Is there a Facebook group called Dumb Photographers?
It's every Facebook group.
By the way, I love this bit, and we may have to steal this for.
We are going to totally steal this bit.
This is a great bit, guys. I love this.
You got to after we wrap this show, you got to tell us where you're getting these questions. These are phenomenal.
For a small price, Steve will package these and sell them to you.
Oh, great. Okay. Individually, if you buy an 800 count, it's only 4 cents a unit.
Yeah. That's right.
You can keep them all over your house.
Because we don't get questions like that. Our listeners give us questions that are like hardcore, deep, technical questions that we can't even answer, and then
we get those too. We just throw those to the wayside.
Or they're writing into the show to let us know something we got wrong.
I can't be bothered to answer the hardcore questions because it's boring to me, and I don't know the answers. So,
all right, that's all. That's all fair.
Heavy on reason number 2.
Yes. Ruth from a random Facebook group asked, trying to set up a drip coffee shoot with model with coffee poured over her body. How hot is too hot for the water? I have a big human-sized filter and lots of coffee already. Please, no coffee sales. Just need to know how hot is too hot for human skin.
All right, I've got this one. Okay, first of all,
Please
Steven,
take it.
You've got the herp. You need to see somebody about that. Okay, go see somebody and get that taken care of. First of all, the coffee shoot doesn't have to be coffee. Talk to a food photographer because it doesn't have to be coffee. And I don't know, Gary, how do you feel about the bringing in the models and covering them in some gunk to produce a picture? I mean, is this something you have any desire to do? Because I have no desire to do this sort of photography at all. Yeah,
to me, that's sort of like an Instagram sort of oddity. I go, oh, that's cool that they did that, but the only thing I can think about is cleaning up my studio afterwards. So no, not interested. But the thing is, one, I want to answer this on a technical level. I want to be like, well, the human body's 98.6 degrees average temperature. You probably don't want the liquid to be too much hotter than that. And second is, what the hell are you thinking? Like, what is the matter? Like, and where are you going to find a model that goes, you're going to, how, not only it's amazing that there's somebody this stupid, but that they could find somebody who's stupid enough to let them pour coffee on them.
Oh, not stupid at all. Are you kidding? Facebook is full of millions of girls who will do anything if you'll just take their picture. It's sad.
Clearly, yeah. Yeah. Oh, man. So how about this? Go ahead and make a big batch of coffee and let it cool to room temperature, and then you can use that. Or how about you just throw out this whole stupid idea in the first place? Because you know what? Because Vogue is not interested in your stupid coffee picture, you moron. You should just go back to whatever you were doing before you picked up a camera. And by the way, have you ever been to New York? Go to the Brooklyn Bridge. It's a delightful walk. And while you're there, jump off it.
Here's the thing about that sort of thing. If you're going to be the guy who's doing the coffee pouring on a model's head kind of photography, you need to be prepared to dedicate your life to being very, very good at it, because the people who do that and do it well, Eric Kaparis, what's the last name, Gary?
Kaparis, I think. Yeah,
Eric Kaparis, for example. They are so good at it, and their Photoshop skills are so deep that your attempt to do it is going to look just sad compared to the level of a guy like that or a guy like Dan McClanahan.
It's going to be a Pinterest fail, big time.
So if that's what you want to do, you need to dedicate your life to being the best at it. Otherwise, you're just going to be an also run. However, you can be a mediocre wedding photographer and still make a living at it.
Yeah,
because, you can be an okay portrait photographer and still make a living at it. But if you're going to be the guy who wants to take a picture of a kid with his head frozen inside an ice cube, you better be the best in the world at it. And even then, you'll be lucky if you can sell one.
Yeah, that is so funny. The swing on that is so hard. Like, it goes from being hokey to being amazing in like that. There's that line is so thin. And it's like going on Pinterest and looking up cake fails. Have you ever looked up cake fails? Mm-hmm. Like, this is what it looked like and this is what you tried to do. That's photographers trying to replicate stuff. Although I did tell someone to kill himself with a microwave and to commit suicide off the Brooklyn Bridge. But to back that up seriously, though, there is a really good idea to replicate stuff to get your skill set down, right? Like that's a legit thing. And so you can do the coffee shoot. I wouldn't. You could do the head in the ice cube shoot, and you're going to learn something. It doesn't mean it's going to be good, but just maybe don't share it on the internet until you nail it. That's just my personal advice. Until you really get it right, don't share it on the internet.
Dustin, you want to take the last question?
I would love to. Brandon.
Oh, Dustin's here. Hey, Dustin.
Hey, Justin.
Hey.
Wow.
It's not Justin. It's Dustin with a D.
Dustin. I should know his name. He's been talking so much.
Yeah, he's out there.
He's just watching. He's listening to the show.
just an audience member.
Yeah.
Brandon from a random Facebook group asked the following: I made the mistake of using my first two initials when picking a name for my photography company.
Oh boy.
They are B and J. So yep, you guessed it, BJ Photography. It was funny at first, but I keep getting gross emails and it's hard to filter the spam out. What should I rebrand as?
Well,
go ahead.
My first okay, my first three suggestions can't be said.
But they can be said.
Oh, well, you might try anal rimming photography. I think would get you some more SEO. Perhaps
Toss Salad Studios.
Fisting photography, always good. Two girls, one cup photography, also popular with the search engines.
You could just go lead right into it
brand.
and be like butt plug photography. It's fine, like whatever. Yeah.
Butt plug photography would be good.
Anal beads. Yeah, you could do it. No
BJ
problem.
photography. That's great. God, that's so great. BJ photography. That's legitimately good. However, you could be the other way around. You could be a female photographer, in which case your name would be what, Gary? All female photographers have the same name for their business, and it's
the FM girls. Yeah.
It's
their first and middle name.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
All female photographers. It's Ashley Elizabeth Photography.
Yeah, it's something. Like if you actually, here's a game. You guys want to play a game real quick? While I think if we have since we have so much time left, if you can think of any a combination of two female names, that are conceivably a first and middle name that a real person might have, and you put the word photography after it, I guarantee if you Google it right now that business exists.
Googling Ashley Madison photography right now. Let's see what pops up.
Yep.
All right. I'm going to do it right now.
We call this the FM Girls game. And here's the thing. If it exists, you have to take a shot. Now, if you read their About section and they mention Jesus, you have to take a shot. If they mention coffee, you have to take a shot. So
the new Ashley Madison. AshleyMadison.com. I don't think that's not.
Isn't that that scandalous dating site? Yeah.
That's a dating app for people who want to cheat on their spouses.
Yeah. And then there's Madison Ashley Photography in Huntington Beach, California.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then there's Ashley Madison Photography, which is in Vancouver.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
There you go.
See, any two names, you can pick them. I don't know if it works with men, though it is a little bit sexist. I realize it's a little bit sexist, but this was a thing that originated probably in 2006 when the recession got really bad, and a lot of people who were photography enthusiasts who maybe lost their job, or they had a spouse or partner who lost their job, and they were trying to make extra money. Let's just say that the ease of access to equipment and the affordability of professional photography equipment, and then the insurgence of people who were trying to make extra money on the side, the photography industry was just inundated with new photographers in a way that it had not been for ever, really. And so a lot of people were blamed. They call them the moms with cameras, which I always found offensive because my mom was a mom with a camera. But basically, this wave of new, mostly young female photographers came into the industry. And so this is a drinking game that came from these like sad old man conventions where a bunch of like old men who used to be great photographers were sitting around like complaining about all the new people in the industry. And so that's where the drinking game came from. But I also find it pretty funny, especially if you get the bonus Jesus shot at the end. That's a real winner. You find that About section. And the word passion. If they say passion in the About section,
the word passion has to be in the website.
Right, absolutely.
And they love their dog.
Yeah. And bonus shot if their dog is in their About photo with them. Yeah.
Oh.
And if they are a husband and wife team, you have to finish the whole bottle. Like that's.
What do you have to do if they're drinking a cup of coffee in their About Me picture?
With their dog and their spouse and business partner. I think you have to jump off the Brooklyn Bridge, to be honest with you. I think you have to get on a plane to New York and jump off a bridge.
And in the About picture, the background has to be brighter than the foreground.
100%.
100% background has to be overexposed.
And if they're wearing a jaunty hat, extra points.
Yeah.
I love it. It's just like a checklist of everything that's popular in photography.
Yeah,
right now.
The jaunty hat, suspenders, that's a big one. Yeah, if they're wearing suspenders, yeah, for sure.
That's they're dressed like someone from Clockwork Orange.
So I have to ask you guys a question. You've been asking us a question. I have to ask you guys a question. How long have you been doing the podcast? I've been listening since episode 1, of course, but I forget how long that's been.
What podcast?
This one, I assumed this was a podcast. Are we just having fun?
This is just a huge honeypot trap. Yeah, no.
Yeah, we just wanted to catch up with you guys.
How long have you been doing the podcast? Seriously.
When this episode goes out, it'll be the first episode of our after 2 years of doing this, I think.
2 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
It'll be 2 years on August 17.
Wow. So you knew we were going to be on the show. Mm-hmm. So did you go and listen to our podcast because you knew we were going to be on the show and you wanted to be able to ask us relevant questions, or do you actually listen to our podcast?
I wanted to ask that too. You guys actually listen to the show, or did you do your research?
Mutual listener Jimmy Ferrara told me maybe a year ago.
Ferrara.
He said that our podcast reminded him of this other podcast he loved, with your guys' podcast, and I should check it out because he said you guys were doing something similar to us where it's kind of about photography,
let's be clear.
Let's
be clear. You're doing something similar to us.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, come on.
Yes,
come on.
That is correct. I misworded that. You guys have been doing this for 5 years, so.
But Jim Ferrara isn't so much a fan of the show as a stalker who's probably going to murder us and turn us into a skin tuxedo one day. Like he has obsessively been a part of the show pretty much since we started, and he is the first to write in, to comment, and he's on it. I've even gotten like text messages from him when an episode drops, responding to something that was in the show. So yeah, Jim is, I would say, #1 Photobomb super fan.
Yeah. So anyway,
Yeah.
the reason I asked is but you've been doing it for 2 years, so you're past the point of getting any advice. But if you're a new podcaster or you're thinking about doing a podcast, I would give you this very weird piece of advice, which is don't listen to other people's podcasts.
That's what I do.
If you want to have, because a podcast should be really all about you and what you want to do, and it's really easy to get caught up in listening to other people and thinking, oh wait, I should emulate that. They don't know what they're doing either. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? The best thing you can do is to be yourself and go your own route, and then hope that you get a listener base from it. And even if you don't get a listener base, you'll have more fun doing it. You know what I mean? So like, I don't listen to anybody's podcast.
Really? That's because that's how we started our show. We started our show because Booray and I just wanted an excuse to talk. Mm-hmm. To each other, because he's a couple hours away from me, and so it's our weekly appointment to sit down and hang out with each other. And it started out a lot looser than it is now. We've tightened up the format a little bit. Like, we've gotten better at being podcasters over time, but really it's still essentially just us talking about what we want to talk about.
And we have stopped trying so hard to be something specific, to be like, our podcast should have this and this, and it should be this. And we stopped thinking about that, and instead started thinking about what would I like to listen to.
Yep.
Just do what you want, what you would like to listen to, because that's the great thing. And this is a 20-year radio veteran talking now. That's the great thing about the podcast world, is that you don't have a program director who is telling you how to do your show. And I spent 20 years in radio with a program director telling me how to do my show. And it wasn't until I was about to quit and I finally realized they can't fire me, that I started doing the show that I wanted to do. And for a blessed 6 months, I had the most fun and got more listeners and was more popular than I had ever been in my career. And then I quit. And that was when I realized I was doing it wrong all along. I was letting other people dictate for me how I was going to do my show, and I should just do what I want to do. And so that's the advice I give to people who say, how should I do my podcast? You should do exactly what you want to do. Mm-hmm. Just have fun, and then organically let it grow, because it doesn't cost anything. It doesn't cost a thing to have a podcast. It's going to take a while to get it where you want it to be. And Gary and I don't even know if we're still not really where we want to be. We know, who knows? Everything's a work in progress, right?
Yeah.
But that's why I asked you if you listen to the show or not. But you've been doing it 2 years, so you're beyond advice at this point.
So I know that this isn't for you, but I'm just going to throw this out there and talk about it for 10 minutes.
Because there are other people. There are people who listen to right now. There's someone listening to this podcast who's thinking about doing a photography podcast, or just doing a podcast, and they're going, here's podcasters, and they're talking to podcasters. There's going to be a lot of great information here that I can use for my podcast.
And then we talk about Dungeons and Dragons instead.
No, there isn't. There isn't any information unless it's technical. No, your podcast needs to be your podcast, man. Make it your own.
Yeah, what's fun about it is that it's my hobby, and although I know that for Booray and I think I speak for both of us, we really got to carve out some time. We both are pretty busy to do it, and it is sometimes inconvenient to consistently find time to do it. But I really have enjoyed doing it, and my friendship with Booray has been so much more than it would have been because we just decided to do this. And so now it's at the point where a friendship that never would have been, because we only knew each other casually at a photography convention, but we had these great conversations. I'm like, we need to do a podcast together. He's like, no, not going to do that. No, not interested.
No,
and eventually,
because I didn't want to carve out the time. I didn't want to have to. I didn't want to have that on my calendar, and also because I didn't think it would be successful. And it's really not. It's really not successful.
But now it's seriously, I talk to you almost every day. Yeah. I talk to you more than I talk to my parents, more than I talk to my siblings. I talk to Booray almost daily.
And you wonder why I didn't want to do it.
Wow. I'm going to go ahead and jump off the Brooklyn Bridge. I'll see you guys
later.
With my head in a microwave.
You got to melt the ice cube somehow, right?
Yeah,
that's right.
See, when Steve told me we were doing this podcast, I actually recognized Gary from a Creative Live course I bought way back when.
You bought that class?
That's very nice. That just makes you feel so good, doesn't it, Gary?
It does. It's funny. Creative Live was a thing. I'd been teaching for several years when I pitched a class, and Creative Live said, "Okay, yeah, we'll do this class with you," and nobody on the national stage of great photography influencers and instructors, nobody knew who the heck I was. And Creative Live really gave me a shot. And I tell you what, I still get, they still market and sell that class. The last class I did for Creative Live was 3 years ago. I still get emails, text messages, phone calls on an almost daily basis from people who've seen that class and have questions. And first of all, it's a little annoying sometimes, but mostly it just blows my mind, the audience that they have and how many people that they reach. It's such a big platform, and it has changed the game. Since I've done Creative Live, I can pretty much walk onto any conference. They'll be like, oh yeah, we know who you are, you can teach at our conference. And so like that was a game changer for me as an educator, was Creative Live, me being nobody and nobody knew anything about me, and they gave me a shot, and it just blew up for me. It was huge. It was a really, really big deal, and then I really, really have a lot of Airy-Fairy loving feelings towards Creative Live for that. Yeah.
I was just hoping you're still getting residual checks.
I do, actually. Yeah, every 3 months I get. The deal that they had at the time was they don't pay you to do it. They fly you out and they put you up, but then they give you 20% of whatever they sell pretty much forever. So I've been getting checks every 3 months from Creative Live for 5 years. And I just got a check yesterday, as a matter of fact, in the mail from Creative Live. And they give you a report and they tell you how many of each of your classes have sold and what their end of it is, what your end of it is. And yeah, and it's been 5 years I've been getting a check every 3 months like clockwork. Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, they're great. And even though my headshot class I did is 5 years ago, they still sell a good amount of them. And they still advertise the crap out of it. They spend a fortune on advertising their courses. And they will follow you around the internet like you just bought some lens wipes on Amazon, and now you see them everywhere you go. You see an ad for those lens wipes. They're really, really good at retargeting on social media. And so my dad, who's 78, thinks that I'm famous.
Because that's all he sees on Facebook.
Because he's watching a video on YouTube, and then the ad will run for my Creative Live class, and he'd be like, yeah, my son, I saw your ad again today, man. That's like, he doesn't quite get retargeting, so he realizes that because he's been on my website and because he has all these associations with me, that he's seeing me, they're serving me the ad because he happens to fall in to the demographic of ads that they've targeted. But he thinks it's just a random happenstance and that I'm actually a celebrity, which is kind of sweet. It's kind of nice, actually.
Well, you kind of are.
I don't know that we are, and I don't know. I don't know when you become a celebrity photographer. I don't know what the line is for that. Like Lindsay Adler, Jerry Jonas, they're celebrities, right?
Yeah, who's the biggest photography celebrity in our industry? I mean, obviously you've got your Ann Gettys and your Annie Leibovitz types, Like there are photographers people who aren't photographers know who they are, like Annie Leibovitz. But in the industry, probably the biggest name in the industry's got to be Sue Bryce, right? Like I saw her at Imaging USA. She did a phenomenal presentation, but she is so popular that she has to have a person walk with her across the trade show to keep people from talking to her because she gets mobbed at conventions when she walks around. Like she cannot walk from her class to like the hotel without being stopped every 10 feet by somebody who just, oh, hey Sue, I'm in your education group and I just want to ask you a question. And you know what? At first I was like, man, okay, she could at least stop and give these people some of her time. But I was like, you know what? She wouldn't even be able to take a piss if she didn't have somebody to at a photography convention. It would be the equivalent of who's somebody that's huge and famous right now, like Post Malone or one of the Jonas Brothers trying to go to the mall. Basically, is Sue Bryce at a photography convention. And I want
to thank you for putting the image of Sue Bryce taking a piss into my head. By the way, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, we have that problem, you and I. There. We can't walk through Imaging USA without being stopped every 10 feet.
Completely different reason, though, because we're our friends, not fans. We just have a lot of friends at that convention.
But my desire to not be bothered by them is just as great as Sue Bryce's desire.
Well, how about this? We'll go in a pair, and I'll bounce people away from you, and you bounce people away from me. I'll be yours, and you be mine. And we could just work in a team like that.
There you go.
Can you guys wear shirts that say that?
Yeah, like I'm with stupid.
I'll be yours.
That kind of a shirt, like with an arrow. Oh, we do have some Photobomb shirts that a fan made for us, which are really cool, and I still have mine.
My shirt just says, "Don't make eye contact with the talent."
Yeah, I am almost 100% just fundamentally opposed to graphic T-shirts that just have phrases on them. They almost always stupid.
And plus, the joke only lasts for 5 seconds. You read it, there's a joke, and now your shirt is dead.
Yeah.
The joke is out there, And now it's, yeah, sure. Yeah, okay, I get it. Yeah, right. Same joke I read 10 seconds ago. And now I got to stare at that joke the rest of the time that we're in this conversation.
Yeah. Not a fan. But I would wear one for you, Boo. I would.
I appreciate that.
I don't want to be too airy-fairy about it, but you're a guy I would wear a shirt for.
Versus not wear a shirt for. Got it.
No, I would not wear a shirt
worse.
for almost any guy. But putting a shirt on for a guy, that's a big deal for me.
So we should probably wrap this up. I know Dustin has to leave real soon. Where can people find you guys online?
Well, you can find us online at facebook.com/photobomb. And you can find us at photobombpodcast.com. You can find Gary at hughesfioretti.com. And you can find me at boorayperry.com.
And also, we will be speaking, both of us are speaking at Imaging USA this year, and you guys should absolutely come.
Oh, God, you should come to Imaging USA.
It would be so cool to hang out with you guys IRL and to grab a beer. And, speaking of grabbing a beer, we didn't get to say what we're drinking. You guys typically do that on your show, right? You say what, because you record at night, right?
We just don't. Yeah, we don't typically record in the morning. So.
Gary, what are you drinking, though?
Well, the smell that's coming off of me will let you know that I was drinking a lot of Bacardi yesterday. But today I'm drinking a nice iced coffee, Kodiak brew, homemade, ground it myself, made in a French press. No, just kidding. It's Folgers. But it's coffee. I'm drinking coffee. I think we're all drinking coffee.
I think we're all drinking coffee.
I had 2 cups of coffee because my son's school this year, they moved him up. So he starts an hour earlier, and it's really screwing with me.
Don't get Booray started on school times. There we go. We're going to, because I guarantee you he's done the homework. Like, there's no reason the school should start at 7 a.m. And it's all a conspiracy because they're trying to save money on the buses. That's it. Yeah.
Yep. That's the problem I have with my kids. I'm at the point where one of them goes to school at 7 and the other one goes to school at 9.
What?
Yeah, that's...
Wow.
Yeah.
Are they one's in high school, one's in middle school?
Middle school. Yeah, the way their busing works is the middle school is first, then the elementary school, then the high school. So if you have a kid in middle school and high school, they're as far apart as you can be apart. So yeah, I say it's 2, but the start, but the come home is about an hour and a half. So the oldest one comes home about an hour and a half before the middle schooler.
Mm-hmm.
God, that sucks. I hated middle school.
Yeah, but the middle schooler, I literally, she comes in the door at 4:45. Mm-hmm. Which is crazy to me because
that's
for
like
me,
having a
my
job.
entire life, my entire life, you got home from school 3:30 at the latest,
Right.
Yeah, she comes home, it's almost 5 o'clock. She walks in the door and we're eating dinner within an hour.
Golly, the damn buses. Anyway, we were wrapping up, right? We keep going. You guys want to talk about comic books some more? We could do that.
Absolutely.
When is Imaging USA for the listeners out there who might have never heard of it?
Sometime in July. I think it's the 19th.
January. It's in January.
I'm sorry. It's like January 19th and 20th
July,
or something.
January, yeah, somewhere in there.
I don't know. It's sometime in January. And Gary is actually teaching twice. That's how popular Gary is. He's actually teaching twice. The truth is that Gary was on the committee. He was chairman of the committee that picked the speakers from Imaging USA, and he was on that committee for like 5 or 6 years, I think.
5 years. Yeah, I chaired the committee for 3, and I was on it for a total of 5 years.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was on the committee for 1 year, and then I dropped off the committee because I discovered that when you're on the committee, you don't put in to speak at the convention because then it wouldn't be right. You're on the committee that picks the speakers, and you're up to speak. Mm-hmm. And I was like, guys, I like to speak at the convention, so I'm dropping off of this committee. Well, Gary didn't do that, and so he went like 5 years not speaking at the convention. So now that he's off the committee, they're like, give us Gary Hughes, more Gary Hughes. So Gary's actually teaching pre-con, and he's teaching on the what do we call it?
The convention?
Yeah, but what do we call it when
the platform?
Platform speaker. So I'm teaching. I taught platform last year, so I'm doing pre-con this year, and that's usually the way it works.
If you haven't been, it's like 10,000 plus photographers. Mm-hmm. It's massive, and it's incredibly well organized. The slate of speakers that coming up this year, myself not included, and Booray is included in this. It's just phenomenal. They have a lot of business focused stuff. They bring in speakers who are business experts who are not in the photography industry to try and keep it fresh so that we're getting the best information as entrepreneurs and not just photographers. And it is just the most fun and the best organized. It's just a really wonderful, wonderful time. If you guys haven't been, you should absolutely come. And I believe that if you are not PPA members, if you join, you get to go to Imaging USA for free with your first year's membership. And if you've never taken advantage of that, I believe this, please don't quote me on it, that if you've never taken advantage of going to Imaging USA with your membership, I believe they will let you do it even if you're not a brand new member, if you've never been before. And they even have like a buddy. It's the cheapest convention. Like it's like $200 for the 3-day convention, and you can go, like, 2 people can go for $300. Like, you can go with a buddy or something. And it's just an absolute blast. You get your hands on all the latest equipment. You get to see incredible instructors, and you drink a lot and have a lot of fun with your friends. It's an absolute
And this year
blast.
it's at the Gaylord in Nashville, which is this giant, all under domed glass resort. It's like a town or city inside under domed glass, and everything is right there. Giant, fantastic venue. The parties are good. They have opening night party. They have a closing night party. The parties are rocking, live bands, free T-shirts, food. It's just, you can't beat it. You really can't beat it. It's a highlight of my year.
Yeah, it's a really good time. You guys should come, and we should do a podcast together from Imaging USA. That would be really fun.
That would be awesome.
They're not going to do it, are they, Booray? They're not gonna do it.
I don't think they're awake.
You guys are doing a live episode sometime soon, right?
Yeah.
Can people still like get tickets to that and everything? When is that going to be? Because this episode will probably come out not this Sunday, but the following Sunday.
Oh gosh, yeah, this is coming up in September. Where we do this is the convention. It's the Focus convention, Focus 2019. This convention is the Florida affiliate of PPA. It's their annual convention for the state of Florida, and this is the place where the Photobomb Podcast was born. Like, this is the place where we had the idea for the show, where Booray and I really met and started to interact. And so every year for the last few years, they've invited us to come and do the show at the conference. So we do a live show with an audience at the Focus conference, and all the information is at areyouinfocus.com, and I believe that is in Orlando at the Florida Hotel and Conference Center, which is attached to the Florida Mall, which is huge. And I believe that the dates are September 27th through the 29th is when we're going to be there. So it'll be a really good time, and we'll be drinking whilst podcasting and with a live audience. And this is our home crowd, so everybody really gets into it. It's a lot of fun.
Nice.
Awesome.
Well, thank you guys both so much for coming on the podcast. It's been awesome having you guys on today. And we should probably let you guys go now because it's been like 2 hours of us talking. So,
hour and 24 minutes.
There's going to be
I've got a timer.
A lot of editing. A lot of editing to be done.
So much editing. Thank you for having us, and we will keep up with you guys, and we'll mention this on our show. And if you haven't listened, check out the Photobomb Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, anywhere podcasts can be found, and make sure that you leave a review for the Wedding Photo Hangover Podcast on iTunes, because these guys do a great job, and show them a little love and leave them a review, because that makes sure that their podcast gets out to more people. So I'm going to tell you, they don't have to do it. They're not going to sell themselves. They're humble. They're nice guys. Right now, take that phone that you're listening to this on, get on there and leave them a 5-star review. 3 stars is for losers. Leave them a 5-star review. Be a winner. Be a good human being and leave them a 5-star review on iTunes. Just do it. Just go do it now. Stop waiting. Get on there and do it.
and right after that, then jump on the Photobomb and leave them a 5-star review too.
No, we don't want that many people to know about us.
The truth is we're too popular.
Well, we really need to
We're looking to
downplay it a
shed
little
some
bit.
listeners.
Yeah, we're looking to shed them.
We're hoping that some of our
Exactly true.
listeners will latch onto you guys instead of us. We're trying to shake a few hangers on loose.
We're soon to start a vetting process if you want to listen to our show.
Yeah, we're going full zero dark 30. We're going to actually go subscription based. Steven's like a nighttime sexy radio DJ. He was like, "Yeah, what kind of underwear do you have on?" And Dustin's like, "Well, actually, this is a photography podcast."
You guys are really in trouble having us on the show.
Yes.
All right, here we go.
3, 2, 1.
I wasn't ready. I wasn't recording. Start over.
Booray.
Wedding Photo Hangover was edited this week by Steve Van Elk of Bespoke Tone. Go to Bespoke Tone for all of your photo, video, and audio editing needs. Woo-wee!